Chapter 16, Back to the Present. Mr. Melvin was very happy to see his purple potty return to him, and even happier to see his beloved Combinatron 2000. "Now all I need," he said with a sneer, "is to find Captain Underpants." Fortunately, Captain Underpants, who you'll probably remember looked just like Melvin Sneedly, wasn't too far away. Unfortunately, he had spent the last 2 days getting himself into trouble. First, he started off by annoying some old ladies. Captain Underpants had been helping them cross the street when he heard a little girl crying for her kitten, which was stuck in a tree. Captain Underpants rescued the kitty but forgot about the old ladies. "Hey!" shouted one of the old ladies. "That flying kid just left us up here in this tree. I'm gonna get that kid if it's the last thing I do," said the other old lady. Next, Captain Underpants was soaring above the football field when he encountered an unidentified flying object. It was made of brown leather and had white stitching on the side. Said Captain Underpants. "This could be a dangerous UFO." He grabbed it and flew down to the football field, where, oddly, the school's football team was having a big game. "I don't want anybody to panic," Captain Underpants shouted, "but I just captured this UFO. I'm going to take it to the moon where it can be safely destroyed." Suddenly, the players from the visiting team tackled Captain Underpants, which cost the home team 50 yards and the game. "That kid just made us lose our biggest game of the year," shouted Mr. Meaner. "I'm gonna get that kid if it's the last thing I do," snarled the quarterback. Finally, Captain Underpants got on the bad side of some skateboarders in the park. He had politely pointed out the no skateboarding signs, but the skateboarders refused to go away. So Captain Underpants had no choice but to snap their skateboards in half with his kung fu kicking action. Then it was spankings for everyone. "Dude," cried one of the skateboarders. "That little dude just like dude I dude boards." "Dude," said another skateboarder. "I'm gonna do that, dude. It's the last dude I dude." Chapter 17, The Big Switcheroonie. Mr. Melvin ordered George and Harold to stick their heads out the window and called for Captain Underpants. Soon, the waistband warrior appeared. Mr. Melvin welcomed the Cape hero inside and asked him to pose for a photo. "Why, I'd be delighted," said Captain Underpants. "Great," said Mr. Melvin. "Put these clothes on and stand over there." At first, Captain Underpants was reluctant to put on clothes, but he finally agreed. Mr. Melvin, who had worked all afternoon reconfiguring the Combinatron 2000, pressed the start button, then ran and stood beside Captain Underpants. Suddenly, 2 glowing lasers began encoding the DNA of the 2 subjects it was about to combine. Then, a burst of brilliant, bright red light shot out of the Combinatron 2000 and formed a ball of energy between Captain Underpants and Mr. Melvin. They both slid together into the red light and formed a giant glob of fleshy goo. The newly reconfigured Combinatron 2000 then switched polarities and began the process of separating the 2 human elements. The red ball of light slowly changed to a lovely shade of green. Zap. Suddenly, there was a blinding flash of light, a quick puff of smoke, and it was all over. Everybody's brains were back where they belonged. "Wow, that sure is a weird camera," said Captain Underpants, who now looked exactly like Captain Underpants. "Can I take these clothes off now? They're bad for my image." "Go right ahead," said Melvin Sneedly, who now looked exactly like Melvin Sneedly. Finally, it looks as if everything was back to normal. But as we all know, looks can be deceiving. Chapter 18, The Return of the Ridiculous Robo-Boogers. Just then, the Poopsie space shuttle headed at Pico International Airport. It wasn't the smoothest of landings due to the fact that 3 robotic boogers had just eaten most of the shuttle's tail fin and nearly all of its rocket thrusters. Major Tomsky and his crew had barely escaped with their lives. Inside the school library, Captain Underpants heard the astronauts' panicked cries coming from the airport. "This looks like a job for me," he shouted, and with a mighty tra-la-la, he leaped out the window and fell 3 stories to the ground. Crash. George and Harold screamed and ran downstairs. "Captain Underpants!" cried George. "Are you okay?" "Speak to us!" cried Harold. Captain Underpants slowly lifted his head in confusion. "Mommy," he said weakly, "my train went swimming in the piano." Meanwhile, over at Pico International Airport, Carl, Trixie, and Frankenbooger had just finished eating the space shuttle and were now starting to march on the control tower. The 3 gloppy glands grew bigger and bigger with every enormous bite. "Come on, Captain Underpants!" cried George. "You've got to save those people!" "But I forgot how to fly," Captain Underpants said sheepishly. "You didn't forget," laughed Melvin Sneedly, who was now floating above their heads. "You've just lost your superpowers. But don't worry, they've been safely transferred into my body. Now I'm the world's greatest superhero." "Melvin!" cried George. "Those Robo-Boogers came back to Earth! They're attacking people at the airport! You've got to help those people!" I'm not doing a thing until you guys change that comic book," Melvin said. "And you better make me look cool this time." "But there's no time," cried Harold. "Those people need your help now." "Well, you better start drawing that art, boy," said Melvin.